Thank you very much, Dato, for setting an uplifting tone for today's event. Without further ado, let us begin with the panel discussion.
Moderating today's discussion is Dr. Joyce Nga from Sunway Business School. Together with Dr. Joyce, we are honored to welcome to the stage our esteemed panelists, Encik Nur Hisham Hussein, Dato Dr. Paul Selvaraj, Dr. Desmond Chong, and Professor Ye Kim Ling. Dr. Joyce, over to you.
Thank you, Hani and Jiang Hao, our MCs for today. Good afternoon, and welcome everyone to our forum today. The global COVID-19 pandemic emergency may have been lifted, but the new normal we live in is far from certain. On the ground, Malaysians strive to make ends meet with the rising cost of living that is not in line with salary growth. We ask the question, what can Malaysians do better to achieve financial resilience? We are here today to discuss the very timely topic of about money, navigating uncertainty through personal financial resilience. We are joined by a panel of distinguished experts who by themselves do not need much of an introduction. You can see their accolades as they appear on the screen. Firstly, we have none other than Encik Nur Hisham Hashim, Chief Strategy Officer of the Employees Provident Fund. He was previously EPF's Head of Economic and Capital Market Department. He has also held economic and strategy-related roles at Perwira Affin Bank, Permodalan Nasional Berhad, as well as Malaysian Rating Corporation Berhad. Next, we have a very driven consumer advocate, Dr. Paul Selvaraj, Secretary General of the Federation of Malaysian Consumers Association. He oversees programs on consumer advocacy to ensure that people like you and me are protected. Dr. Paul is also a board member of the Ombudsman of Financial Services. Next, we'll have the views of a renowned speaker and trainer in financial planning, Dr. Desmond Chang Kok Fei. Dr. Desmond is the president of the Malaysian Deputy President of the Malaysian Financial Planning Council. He is also currently a financial trainer at AKPK, adjunct professor at Taylor's University, Treasurer General of the Malaysian Silk Route Chamber, as well as Treasurer General of the Yayasan Bhakti Nusa Malaysia. Finally, last but not least, we have our very own Prof. Ye Kim Ling. Prof. Ye is a member of the advisory committee to the Finance Minister and the Deputy President of the Malaysian Economics Association. At Sunway University, Prof. Ye is the Professor of Economic Studies at the Jeffrey Chia Institute of Southeast Asia. To all our distinguished panelists, welcome to Sunway University. Let me start with my first question. This question I will address to Prof. Ye. Yeah, Prof. Ye, in your previous communication in the press, you have always stressed that increased productivity and upskilling is a way forward to achieve salary growth. However, the underlying assumption is that with the increased salary growth will come increased savings. As a member of the advisory committee to the finance minister, what would you say would motivate the lower and middle income groups, right, to be able to save more, especially if they are not contributing to EPF?
Thank you very much, Joyce. Now, of course, personal financial planning It's very specific to individuals, to your own career, your livelihood, your spending lifestyle and all that. So what's important here to note here is that from a policy perspective, we need to create what they call conducive or enabling conditions to motivate individuals to save enough, either from a contributory perspective as to when you contribute towards like funds like EPF, SOXO and all that, basically to protect you against all the what we call life cycle risks, you see. So on the individual basis, that's very important. You strive towards what they call reaching higher income, and then with higher income, you have greater flexibility to save. And with savings, you can look at all the various investment opportunities, looking at various forms of passive income, or importantly, active income where you actually take part in investments, yeah, and that can actually escalate you to a different career path or different income trajectories. So what's important here is that I think everyone should have some very basic personal financial planning, very important. That's financial education, financial literacy. All these are very important. And the challenge is how to translate this knowledge into financial competency and financial capability, where you can leverage on whatever you save and build up your nest egg, you see, either from your savings as you grow or from your ability to increase your productivity or your skills so that you can earn either in terms of wages, yes, fixed salaries and income, or you go into businesses that you can generate all kinds of, the sky is a limit for entrepreneurs. So between these two, I think most of us will fall either into one or the other or somewhere in the middle. But importantly, I think if you look at the stresses that we are facing these days, it's becoming much more challenging. Of course, we do expect shocks to become more frequent and also much more severe. So I think very important to cultivate and nurture a savings habit at the individual level and at the national level. The government is trying to promote what we call savings culture, so that will help to enhance the resilience of individuals as well as households and of course the overall economy to what we call external shock or domestic shocks. But very important from a policy perspective, the government is also doing its part to try to build some form of a social safety net, or what we call now in modern parlance is social protection. So I think there is, from a national perspective, policy are now being looked into very seriously to see how best we can use our resources more fully, especially, for example, over what you call excessive subsidies being given for unproductive consumption like fuel, electricity and all this, to see how we can shift some of these unproductive or regressive subsidies to what we call more progressive forms of social assistance. Like, for example, we are talking about universal basic income and all that, so that we can provide income protection floor for everybody, focusing specifically on children and the elderly. Of course, we have working age adults, which I'll leave to Encik Hisham to talk more about. So basically, that's my perspective in terms of you can enhance. At the same time, we need a national social safety net in place to ensure that all the so-called 9 life cycle risks are taken care of at the individual level as well as the community level. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Ye. I have one more question for you. What are some alternative measures that you can think? A lot of Malaysians tend to want to rely on subsidies and government assistance as they come out, right? So what do you think is your message to these people, and what are the alternative measures available to reduce too much reliance, right, on government assistance and subsidies?
Okay. Subsidies and what they call policy instruments, they are used to actually shape human behavior. See. So we want to encourage more savings, then we must create what they call in behavioral psychology terms nudges or incentives to be given so that people have the incentive to save more, see. And then, of course, the challenge here is actually to see how, especially those do not have the means, they are living below the so-called the living wage. And that's a challenge for the individual as well as for the government in terms of how to help the low-income groups that are basically living from hand to mouth. You see. So we need a combination of social insurance like EPF for retirement. We need a combination of social assistance like all the subsidies. Of course, we do differentiate between good subsidies and bad subsidies. And then very important, in terms for the working age adults, we need what they call active labor market intervention to build the skills, enhance the productivity, and provide more income-generating opportunities, especially for the young, for the youth, where unemployment is still currently relatively high compared to the current unemployment rate of 3.5%. So for the youth, the unemployment rate is close to 11 to 12%. So I think that is a major challenge to create more income-generating opportunities. Thank you.
I think what Prof. Ye have summarized is that, I mean, even with the upskilling, we also need to be have better financial planning in order to manage our income better. It's not the amount of income you earn, but the amount that you are able to save for the future that also matters, right? And I think we all here, I think our government has done a lot to help us, right? But at the same time, we know that the government debt has been rising, and we cannot rely too much on the government subsidies, right? And so I think sometimes we have to ask ourselves, what can we do better, right? To help the government to reduce the subsidies as well, right? So we look forward to what's going to happen next. Yeah. Thank you so much, Prof. Ye. Now let's move on to Dr. Paul. In your many years of experience of being involved in issues of consumer awareness, protection, advocacy, can you suggest some smart consumer practices that all of us here can practice in times like this when we experience increases in cost of living?
Thank you, Dr. Joyce. Now, before going the question of cost of living, the first question I'd like to ask is, are Malaysians financially resilient? Are Malaysians financially resilient? Now, resilient means when you face adversity, you're able to cope. And you have savings, you can borrow, you have insurance that will help you go through adversity. So are Malaysians resilient? Now, according to the data, 52% cannot borrow 1,000 ringgit. Yeah, and only 24%, if they lose their job, can survive for more than 3 months. Medical insurance rates are very low. Yeah, so that means it's a big question mark of how resilient we are. Yeah, there's a long way to go. Now, the issue of cost of living is fundamental in every research. In fact, Emir just had carried out research, and consumers were asked, what is your biggest worry? What's your biggest worry? So many issues. 86% said cost of living. People are suffering. Yeah, simple as that. Yeah. So when it comes to the question, what are the smart things we can do? Now, in 2008, when prices of oil was going up, FOMCA launched a national campaign called the National Consumer Campaign. The theme was "Change Begins with Me." Now, but I want to say that that theme is, of course, it puts the burden on the consumer. Change all your habits, be good, save, don't spend, and things like that. But I think in the current context, it's a very irrelevant. I mean, not say it's not relevant. We need structural changes to help consumers. I mean, yes, you need to empower consumers financially in terms of their consumption habits, but without structural changes, I think things are going to be really tough. Yeah. So when we talk of cost of living, but we always talk about food, but actually it's food, healthcare, your transport costs. One very often forgotten thing is childcare. Yeah. Now all of this makes up cost of living. Now, first, let me start with salary. Just last week, Mia ex-professor said 70% of Malaysian workers do not have a decent wage. 70%. So income is already low. 70%, yeah? And one of the statements of Bank Negara before COVID was that the cost of living was going up and having a severe impact on B40, on the low income. But now, salaries are low, cost of living is going up. So, of course, it's good to talk about financial literacy, but without structural reforms, I think it's going to be tough. I mean, let's just start with food. Yeah? Now, I'm sure all of you all have this experience. Just last week, my kway teow goreng went up by $1. Within the past 3 months, from 550, it has gone up to 8 ringgit, 7 ringgit, 758. I think that's your experience. That's about 40%. I'm sure none of you have salary increase of 40%. But yeah, so your cost is going up. And I'm talking of food, and I'm talking of 7 ringgit, 8 ringgit is tepi jalan, not go to expensive restaurant. Yeah. So food is, and even raw food, raw materials. I mean, a lot of this faces more towards cooked food rather than raw food. But if you go to pasar pagi or pasar malam, the guy will tell you, ini timun macam emas sekarang. Last week, 350. This week, $8. In fact, my nasi lemak guy says today, I'm not giving you timun because the price has gone up too high. Yeah. So this is basic. Nobody can say, oh, I don't want to eat. You still have to go and get your raw materials, or you have to cook food. But that kind of pricing, I mean, you're really squeezing people. And, so we tell people to manage what you manage when prices are so drastically increasing and salaries are not increasing. And this is a structural issue. I'm not going to go into that about food security, but two things. We've neglected food production until we depend, 50 billion of our food is imported. Yeah, and we've allowed a lot of market manipulation. So I just leave it at that, because there's a report from Competition Commission, not my report. We've allowed that, so food prices have just increased, and honestly, I don't see any positive move to government apart from good statements. Yeah. Secondly, we talk about healthcare. Now, we always talk of healthcare, we think, hey, we don't have a healthcare problem, we have a good public healthcare system. True. Yeah. But, government's healthcare spending, government spends 53%, if I'm not mistaken, 53%. Consumers spend 38%. Healthcare spending comes from consumers, what we call out of pocket. Out of pocket. Why does a consumer who, when it's a good public, I'm saying the public healthcare system, it's good, but it's overwhelmed. So you take your wife, you take your child, you take your mother, the public hospital, they say, yes, 3 months' time you come for your checkup, 6 months' time you see the doctor. Of course, by that time, should have KO, a lot of people were, yeah. So you rush to the private hospital, whether you can afford or not. Whether you can afford or not. At one stage, AKPK used to tell how much people who went to private hospital, now they don't carry the data, but last time, it used to be the second or third reason people go to AKPK, they cannot pay their hospital bills. Okay, so healthcare is one issue. And again, the insurance rate is low. People are not buying enough medical insurance. That means an emergency, nobody wants to be sick. An emergency out of pocket. And this is a significant part. Now the third is transport. I used to talk about public transport a lot, and I always say the LRT is excellent. Not too many times it's breaking down. That's not good. My argument is always the last mile. You can get to that point, but to get to your home, our bus system is bad. How much of us can depend on Grab all the time? In that sense, we also need to change our attitude in the sense of using public transport. In a certain sense, it has changed. You see LRT is packed. You see car parks, public system is packed. But we are still not, only 17% use. Because we still have not sorted out the last mile bus system. And in terms of cars, one of the interesting things, in one particular university, public university actually, there's a big signboard. Once you graduate, you just come to the showroom and collect your car key. You don't have a job, but you can collect the car key. No deposit, no nothing. Yeah. So we have made it easy, but can we really afford? One interesting experience I had in one of the serents, I had one of the top professors from Kazana, from Norway. And I was just telling him, my first 3 cars were second-hand cars. The 4th car was new, whereas nowadays people automatically buy a new car. When I told him that, he told me he's a professor and one of the top guys. He told, you are very rich. I said, why? He told, in Norway, nobody buys a brand new car. Only the very rich. So we have thought of, although we can afford, we cannot afford, we buy. And of course, then we end up as good friends to EKPK. Now, one of the biggest concerns about EKPK and bankruptcy, the side issue, is that the number of young people who are getting bankrupt. I mean, bankruptcy is one thing, EKPK is one thing, the number of young people. So it's habits. And another issue, of course, is housing. Now, our housing is relative to our salary. Bank Negara says, it should be 3 times the salary, but ours is 4.5 times. And that's in the median. If you go into KL and Selangor, it's way more expensive what people can afford. So unless there's a regulatory in terms of, having affordable homes or regulating private sector to ensure that houses are affordable, people are not going to be able to afford. Yeah, and also if you cannot afford buying a house, our rental is not well developed. Rental is not well developed. So sometimes we need a different way of looking at things, of purchasing a new car or house so that we can manage our costs. And the last part of cost of living is, of course, childcare. I think it's one of the most neglected. To face the current cost of living, low income, what happens? Husband and wife have to work. Who takes care of the children? And these prices have really been going up. And I don't see any kind of commitment in terms of government to make sure to address this, whether in the public sector, a lot of statements, of course, but childcare prices are going up. And of course, now with the issue of maids, there's a lot of other issues also. But these are all pressures on the consumer. So to summarize, how do consumers face this? Now, of course, there has to be regulatory changes, program changes addressing especially the low income and middle income. But also in terms of consumers themselves, in terms of consumer education, how to manage your consumption, and very important, of course, financial education. So I think the only way we can move forward is not just empowering consumers, critical, but also we need regulatory changes to address realistically the issues faced by consumers. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. Another question. The modern culture is one that makes people more inclined to spend rather than save. Recently, the threshold for bankruptcy has been increased to 100,000, and this might have created a false sense of security to the young that it's okay to spend more on credit, right? What are your thoughts on the worrying trend of increased debts and of possible increased bankruptcy, especially among the youth?
And I spoke to a group of students and I warned them about bankruptcy. They said, bankrupt, so what? The only concern is cannot go overseas for holidays after get stopped at the immigration. That's the only concern. You're not worried about anything else. Okay, bankruptcy for my generation, our generation was shame. What happens if you take away that shame? So what, nah? Now, again, from our own research, 48% of young workers are over-indebted, okay? According to Asian Financial Council, 70% of young workers live beyond their means, spending more than they earn. Now, these are fundamental issues, okay? Number one, of course, is financial education. But there's also, now what happens if you want to buy a lovely skirt and you cannot afford? Can you take home the skirt? Can. It's called buy now, pay later. Okay, that's becoming expensive in Malaysia. Yeah, and of course, you're working with Bank Negara to regulate. But say now, you're making it so easy for you to spend without any kind of protection. Yeah, so there is the responsibility of the consumer in terms of credit card debt, in terms of BNPL, and in other things, in terms of your behavior, in terms of how you manage credit, how much you save, especially for emergencies. But on the regulatory aspect, I think sometimes I say it's too easy to get debt. Now, one of the stories when it comes to housing, sometimes a young worker goes to the bank and he cannot get, the bank rejects, then they come to us very upset. So should I support a consumer who wants to buy and loan rejected, or should I support the bank? Honestly, I support the bank. If the person cannot afford, he cannot afford. It's not about, I agree with the philosophy that housing is a basic right, yeah? But can you afford? Based on your salary, I mean, that's it. So the system is imposing on you, but I think this is where we have to build. Now, I agree fully that financial education has to be from school and things like that. But, we are in an environment that strongly promotes consumption, whether it's media. Last time, I mean, again, when I talk of last time, I talk of my generation. Your parents can off the TV. Today, they are reaching children in their bedrooms to social media. And they're starting at a young age. 3 years old, 4 years old, they're building values. If you ask a 4-year-old or 3-year-old, where does he want to go for breakfast? Does he tell you nasi lemak, kuih tiaw goreng? Or he wants pizza, McDonald's? Now, where did he learn that? Where did he learn that? Yeah. So we are building certain values which is counter. And let's be honest, that side is very powerful. But we do what we can through financial education, through consumer education. But this is the dynamics of this kind of society which substantially promotes consumption.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. Perhaps we have addressed some issues concerning the young consumer, but what about what are the options available in Malaysia now as we face the aging population issue on long-term care needs for the elderly?
Actually, it's an odd question, you know why? Because yesterday, they came out saying that there's going to be a national aging policy. National aging policy because Malaysia are going to be aging in 2030 or something like that. But according to United Nations, we already crossed that milestone 2 or 3 years ago. So what the hell are these policy guys doing? Talking we are going to be aging, we need a policy when I've already crossed a milestone. I mean, they can't be that backward. I mean, there's a limit to this. But having said that, we have not prepared for an aging society. Okay, we have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, about 20 rumah sejahtera for those who are boleh urus diri. That means you can take care of yourself. That's only about 20. And I think we have 2 for those who are terminally ill. Now, for our population, that's grossly inadequate. So what happens? I'm sure in a lot of your taman there is private nursing homes. Private nursing homes. That's the only place left. Can you afford? Yeah. And we're not even helping generations take care of their parents. Huh? A lot of generation today is what we call sandwich generation. You have to take care of your children and you have to take care of your parents. Salary is not high, cost of living is high. So there does not seem to be any kind of strategic thinking in terms of infrastructure, in terms of preparing for old age. And this is where, like I told you, private sector is playing a big role, but the affordability, some of them, the reasonable ones is about, I think, 2,500, 3,000. That's higher than the minimum wage. The good ones about 6,000. Can Malaysians afford? Can Malaysians afford? So from a national strategy, I think we are not prepared. Infrastructure is not there, and we are. In another interesting report. Now we all talk of Japan as an aged society, yeah. But according to experts, we are aging faster than how Japan aged. That means we are going to reach all the milestones very fast. They call it aged society and super aged society, and we're moving very fast. But in terms of preparation for this, in terms of elderly care, in terms of sickness, in terms of just taking care, whether it's the burden is now on the family. If you cannot afford, what happens? The family has to take care. And I don't know, my opinion, you cannot legislate. I mean, they're trying to legislate and say children must take care, if not you go to jail. Of course, you also talk of family values. Those are all good. But I think we need to go far beyond that in terms of thinking, preparing the infrastructure, and even maybe, having an incentive scheme. A lot of nations are aggressively preparing because it's happening. It's not, whether you have a choice, it's happening. But how are we prepared? And I think we are just grossly unprepared for this. And this is how we're moving forward. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Paul. So, what I see from what Dr. Dato Paul is saying is that there are some infrastructure changes that I think, I hope that Prof. Ye is going to highlight to the finance minister, and there is also a difference between financial literacy and financial discipline. So in the modern society, we have a lot of temptations, all right? And we not only need the head knowledge, but the heart knowledge, right? The connection there will determine how far we go in the future, right? And don't let the bank dictate, right, how much debt you can take, right? I think we need to take charge of this, right? And we need to determine how much debt we can afford to take. And we learn in the book, and also through AKPK, we have learned about all the ratios and the good thresholds that we need to maintain. And then I think that these are the things that we can will be useful for us going forward. Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Paul. Now we will move on to the man of the hour, Encik Nur Hisham. Yeah. In the present press statement in April 2023, the Prime Minister highlighted that a vast majority of EPF contributors, or to be more precise, 81% of APF contributors cannot afford to retire above the poverty line. Not to mention the 145 million COVID-19 special withdrawals, right? You definitely play a very crucial role now as the Chief Strategy Officer of EPF. Could you please elaborate on what EPF is doing to ensure that we as Malaysians continue to be able to enjoy the good dividends as well as have sufficient retirement savings?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joyce, for the question. I think maybe first of all, I'd like to address that question of the data, right? That 81% figure was based on our basic savings number, which is calculated on the minimum pension amount times 20 years times 12 months. So you get 240,000, more or less. So that figure is roughly about the people who actually meet that standard over our age bands is roughly about 19%. But we will be publishing on Tuesday, and I hope you try to get hold of some of this data. We will be publishing on Tuesday the latest numbers in terms of research into what is the minimum expenditure that was required for different types of families. We call this Belanja Wangku. And the latest figure for the Klang Valley for a single person using public transport is about 1,900 ringgit. So that's about double the 1,000 ringgit that is the minimum pension amount. For a single elderly person, which is what we're trying to aim for as far as retirement savings is concerned, it's roughly about 2,006. A single elderly. So 2,600 ringgit times 12 months times 20 years. And what's the figure? The figure is 600K, not 240,000. So if we apply that 600,000 figure, do you know how many people actually have enough money to retire? It's not 19%, it's 3%. So in terms of where we are today, I think in terms of, building up retirement savings, yes, the special withdrawals had a massive impact, I think, in terms of retirement adequacy. But the situation was already bad before COVID. Okay, I would say that fundamentally, there's a couple of issues here. One, obviously, what we've all talked about, low salaries. If your salary is low, no matter how large your contribution rate is, your savings will be low, right? Your ability to save is going to be basically constrained by those numbers. The second thing, and this is also a very big issue that we're trying to resolve today, is coverage. Out of a total labor force of 16 million people, only a little over half actually contribute to the EPF. Only half. What about the other half? Who covers them, right? And even within this half, this 50% that actually contribute to the EPF, the number of people who actually contribute every single month is 80% of that. So when you talk about this, the stereotypical wage worker, you get a salary every month, you get your potongan gaji, it goes into EPF, that's only 40% of the workforce. We have a very large informal sector. We have a very large segment that is working under contracts, which are not liable for EPF contributions. We have petani, nelayan, business owners, professionals. I was quite surprised during COVID. I mean, we were, I think Professor Ye and myself, we had trips to Putrajaya and all that. And it turns out that every quantity surveyor, every architect in Malaysia is a partnership, a business owner. No EPF savings. A lot of accountants, these are not B40 poor people, right? If you go next door, Sunway Hospital, you talk to the doctors there, they're not salaried workers. They're Sindiran Berhad. They do not contribute to EPF. So we have a structural problem in Malaysia where a lot of people are, by definition, do not save for their retirement, do not have an avenue for retirement savings. So that's, I think, for us, that is the key question that we're trying to resolve today. There's basically two questions. One is the question of adequacy, how much savings you have. The other question is, do you have a system that actually covers you? Because if we look at the situation in Malaysia today, there's the government pension service that's managed by KWAP. There is the EPF, which covers private sector workers, but nobody covers the housewives, nobody covers the professionals, nobody covers the business owners, nobody covers the contract workers, nobody covers the people, the gig workers, nobody covers the foreign workers. So there's massive gaps, like Dr. Yeo was talking about. Having a social protection system is critical. Right now, our protection system is full of holes. So I think this is the real challenge, I think, for this government and the governments to follow. And this is something that EPF is working towards. We need to fill those gaps. There is that structural issue of wages, but even a little bit of savings helps, right? And expanding that coverage is extremely important. We can talk about extending the extent of savings as we go along. I think the other thing is that fundamentally, when we talk about the system we have today, EPF is not the only solution. And so we have to look at different types of models, different types of institutions that can provide coverage that EPF cannot. We rely on, if you are earning an income, we can get voluntary contributions from you if you would like to contribute, if you're not a salaried worker. But what happens in this instance that you are of working age, but you're not earning an income? We have 2 million non-working housewives in Malaysia. Right? Who covers them? The husband? I don't think so. We have this product called iSayang, where there's you can transfer 2% into your wife's account. Not a whole lot of take out. Suami tak sayang. So we need a system that covers everybody, right? So in an ideal social protection system, you would have multiple layers. You would have a national pension that covers everyone. This is tax finance. You have a contributory pension. This is based on some redistribution based on contributions. And then you'll have a third layer, which would be EPF, right? And then you'll have, the voluntary savings and the like. But we're missing a lot of the pieces of a full-fledged social protection system. And I think this is where I think EPF is working towards, and I think I'll leave it there because it's a quite complex question.
The Prime Minister had also agreed in principle that the government will raise the voluntary savings from 60,000 Malaysian ringgit to 100,000 Malaysian ringgit in the near future. My question is, how successful has this voluntary savings scheme been in the past?
Actually, not too bad. We got a roughly 40% increase over the past year. I think once you start educating people on the importance of savings, they're interested. And I think that the real constraint that a lot of people are facing today is, one, obviously, do you have enough left over from your monthly expenses to actually save anything? The second thing is accessibility, because not everybody has a bank account, right? You go to Sabah or Sarawak, right? It's cash. Or if you're in Sarawak, it's actually Sarawak Pay. They actually use an e-wallet, right? Other issue, what I've gathered from visiting the branches and all that, even debit cards, some people don't have. You don't have bank account, you don't have debit card, they want to use cash. At EPF, we cannot take cash. There's a particular, the reason for that is that we want to be sure that there's no avenues for problems with integrity. You deal with cash, you have to track it. It's expensive. You have to have security. You have to make sure, you have to audit people, making sure that, the transfer of cash is actually proper. So what we typically do is that we partner with BSN or RHB or some other bank who actually can take cash, and then we bring them along when we visit down, we go down to the kampungs and all that. But it is a problem. So there's a couple of things here. Is one, obviously the structural problem of low incomes. The second thing is the avenues in which you can save, right? Not everybody has a smartphone. Not everybody has a bank account. So how do you manage savings under those circumstances? I know don't repeat this, but we know of cases where our officers are doing the savings for our members. They'll actually put the money in for them, because they don't have those avenues. So, by the way, the 100,000 limit was raised on June 1st. Yeah. So, there you go. The other thing I would add is that you don't have to start working before you open an account. We actually accept EPF account openings from 15 years old onwards, right? So I actually opened an account for my daughter. She's 18. She's still in university. So you can save now. My goal actually is, if I can persuade MOF about this, is to open it up all the way to birth. Because when you start saving at birth, you got an 18-year extra runway for that compounding effect to help you save for retirement. So, and I think from EPF's perspective, we're gradually shifting away from just being a savings institution to really looking at our relationship with our members over the entire lifetime. And that is very meaningful, because it's not just age 60, here's your money, thank you, goodbye, right? We're now looking at post-retirement. What kind of relationship should we have with my members? How should we manage that money to ensure that that money lasts as long as possible? So you will see significant changes in the EPF scheme, we hope, over the next 2 or 3 years. So I think exciting things will be happening here. Okay.
Yeah. What are the initiatives? What initiatives are there? One thing you talk about the saving. What initiatives are there to encourage senior citizens to maintain their savings in EPF post-retirement?
Well, we continue. The dividend rate doesn't change when you turn 60. So the dividend rate is the same regardless of whether you're 59 or 65 or 75 or 100. We actually have a handful of members who are still contributing in their 80s. They're still saving, right? So what happens is that once you reach 60, you have full access to your money. You're still being paid dividends, and you will get your cash. If you ask for it, you will get your cash within 3 working days. Now, why wouldn't you want to keep your money in EPF? Right? So we will be looking at potentially products down the road where we actually just do a monthly payout. So it makes things a lot easier, right? So you can choose how much you want to put under this monthly payout and how much you want to just take out on your own. So what we want to do here is to make sure that we continue that relationship with our members past retirement, also ensure and help them. We actually have an advisory service at every one of our branches. You can go down at any time, no matter what age you are, and ask for advice. It's free on how, retirement planning, even financial planning. They'll help out in terms of your budgeting and all of that, and try to make sure that you can stretch your money as long as possible. Because too often what happens is that at age 60, they take out all their money, it's all gone within about 3 to 5 years, because it looks like a lot, right? Yeah.
So in terms of investment, would you say that for the retiree, would you say that EPF is still the best bet for long-term savings?
As long as it can beat the FD rate.
Yeah, thank you very much, Encik Nur Hisham, for your invaluable sharing on why Malaysians should not only just why Malaysians should not neglect building up their EPF and also supplementing it with voluntary savings. It is becoming very evident that Malaysians need to have better financial planning and, in particular, investment planning for their impending retirement. Thank you very much, Encik Nur Hisham. Finally, we have Dr. Desmond. As I was saying earlier, it's becoming very clear and evident that financial planning is an important aspect for personal financial resilience. Given your extensive background as a registered financial planner, as well as, can you suggest some good financial practices for the younger people as well as the older people in order to have a better preparation for retirement?
Actually, we have a lot of plan to share. The only problem is people don't talk. They don't communicate. Okay, this can be shown. I'm wearing two hats now today. One as a financial planning counselor. The other one is the cases that I used to see for the past 13, 14 years. There is about 1.4 million people who came to AKPK. And that is the only time they discuss about the financial matters. Let's do a test now. How many of you discuss about credit card just now with your wife, with your husband? How you spend your money, how much saving you have? All this is cannot discuss. When you start to discuss, they start a fight. Okay, some even start the fight in front of us. Look like it's just first time they discuss the matter of finance. This one, I think, from the survey we know as Asians, we hardly discuss two matters. One, family matters. Secondly, is the money matters. Okay, so if this is something that you don't take the initiative and discuss, and you let it magnify, okay, that is the problem start. Okay, so for the youngster, based on the cases that we handle, we come up for many module case study for the youngster, for the middle income group, for B40, even for the post-retirees. We have all the module. But let's be honest, who listen? Who want to listen to you? Who want to know about all this matter, especially things not happened yet? Okay, you talk of the youngster, I tell you about saving money, you will ask me, save for what? I be saving money every day. Why you save the money for? You know, sounds stupid, right? Get the money, don't spend. Okay, keep it for who? Okay, I always tell the retirees, you better spend now, otherwise someone will spend for you. Okay, Dato, you know, right? You don't spend now, someone will spend for you. Okay, the question here is, how much we know I need to have, how much I think I should have, and how much I should pass it on. Or it's about financial planning. The problem is we have all the material, but who will listen to you? Who will listen to you? Okay, that is why after many years in AKPK, I think the best avenue is let the peers, let the student talk to the student. Let them talk, because they share the same topic. That's why the AKPK club established. It's not an easy task, to be honest, because university have their own declarations, have their own standard to start. It's for us to talk to them many, many times, okay, in order to start the club. So now I can rely on the clubs, okay, give them the topic and let them talk. Okay, back to the youngster. What is your interested topic now, youngster? You don't tell me saving for retirement, sorry. Yeah? Okay. Yeah, where to go tomorrow? Where is our next semester break? And where should we go? And so on and so forth. Okay, spend first so everyone can fly. Okay, so all this is something that important. It's not for, education provider like AKPK. We talk to you how to do it, how to spend it. Okay, but I think it's better than the parents tell you what is important. The father tell you, son, daughter, listen now. In our family, we left them 1 month's emergency fund to spend. Can you please not to spend the way that you spend? As a parents here, how many of you, let's say you are in that situation, you will share your problem with your daughter and son? Many Asians don't do that. I'd rather keep the problem with me. Okay? That's why sometimes when we see the poor mother, the poor father come to us, okay, they tell us all the problems, they start crying. Can you imagine, sometimes 30, 40 years old, sometimes 50, 60 years old people cry in front of a stranger? What you expect me to tell them? I cannot say I have the same problem. Okay, then why should I look for you? Okay? So sometimes I share all this story with all the youngsters, with the students. Okay, when I set up the club, this is all the real case study. This is actually what's happening. So let someone do the job and tell the students what to do and how to do it. Okay? Of course, for the youngster, how to do it better for yourself. Okay? I always targeting the last semester student when they're about to go to work. If you wanted to have a better control of your management, financial management, 2 things have to be careful. One, of course, the expenses. Secondly, the borrowing. Okay? So when you start borrow, especially houses, there is 30 years in the periods. It's very hard to do a reverse. Agreed? Not agreed? Okay? Then secondly, what's the main problem for borrowing? Malaysian, okay, everyone own a car, right? Anyone here not own a car except the student? Ms. Chong, you own a car, right? Okay, but students, you know that the second highest reason for bankruptcy is car loan. You might own a car, but you can't afford to pay the car. Okay, that is something that we want to highlight to you. Okay, what is the calculation of interest? How the interest work? Okay, how many of you they are knowing that there are actually few type of interest here? It's not only one. There's flat rate, there are floating rates, there are fixed rate, and so on and so forth. This is what we wanted to help the student. Okay? Of course, back to Malaysian Financial Planning Council, we have all the modules, we have all the planning, we have all the calculations. Okay? But why we offering all this module? We want you to help yourself. Use it as a self-guide. Be a planner, or you want to get the interest, read Dr. Joyce's book later. Okay, all is from the book. Another reason is who read book now. Okay, that's why we are here. We want to take a tips. Okay, and I think there's a later question for me. Okay, Desmond, don't talk a lot lah. Just tell me how to get rich fast scheme. Talk so much, might not you increase my income and get the perspective income that may be sound better and solve all my problem. Unfortunately, that's what the problem start. We have so many other cases for victim of get rich fast scheme. Okay, it's all recorded case. So the avenue here is we have the case, we have the module. Okay, of course I'm not saying all of you need AKPK services or MFPC services, but are you really willing to share your problem or your concern Maybe not with me, not with all the gentlemen here, at least with a family. Husband and wife here, are you able to talk tonight instead of where to go for your dating, for your dinner? Can we talk about money matters now? How about next month? How about tomorrow? How about the spending? How to put the food on the table? Is this sounds too serious? Does it sound too serious to discuss about financial matters? Sometimes better face it, discuss it. I always think that solutions always better and always a lot than the problems. Okay? Don't, sorry, allow me for 1 minute. Don't ever think about that options. You know what option I'm talking about. Okay? That is not an option at all. Okay? But it did happen. It did happen. So sometimes it's very sad when someone tells us that I wanted to do that, okay? And more worry is, I have one call I received for a single mother. She kept talking to me saying that I'm having problem, I can't pay the debts, you know. I really thinking about that options. The problem is, he'll be bugging on the phone 2 hours. I can't put down the phone. Because I worry about the moment I put down the phone, I start regret. Until the end, I only reply her, Madam, the only thing you allowed me to do is put down the phone. Let me do my work. Otherwise, I can't start to do my work. Okay, so for youngster, always start from a good beginning. Join AKPK club, start knowing the modules. Okay, it's not that simple and easy that you're talking about. This is all about money practice and management. And start asking your parents, can I get involved with our family's financial situations? Start asking. I think we as a parents, I very much appreciate if my son can come to me. Daddy, I have a solution for you. Okay? I have a solution for you. You don't need to spend so much for my education. Okay? I'm happy. I'm willing to listen. Okay? It's not necessary every time must be parents telling children what to do. Sometimes, to be honest, after I started the AKPK club, I realized that I'm actually the one who must learn from them. I don't know what is TikTok. I don't know what is Insta. And they do a lot with podcasts. Okay? So instead of looking for a structural change and waiting something to happen, I think all the youngsters here, you can do your part. Start sharing and start talking to the parents or family members, or even for all the parents here. Okay? Never think our children don't know what's going on. From the real case, from many, many cases we see, actually they know. They just want to keep silence. They thought you are the one don't want to talk about this. Don't get them a misconception. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think for the young people, your parents are not going to be there for always, right? So start where you are. There are many examples around. I always tell my students, financial planning is one that, you know, I don't have to go and so difficult to look for exam questions. Everyone is a case study out there, right? So learn from experiences of others, right? And start where you are to plan better. Start with your cash flow budget. Start with your net worth and managing your debts well. I think that's the first place to start, right? Dr. Desmond, you took one of my questions already, but there's one more question I have for you. What's the fastest way to achieve financial freedom?
Read your book. Of course, the fastest way to get financial freedom, I always say this, don't rely on others. Really don't rely on others. Okay? First thing first must be a self-interest. Okay? Look at money. Sometimes people say how to make money, you must love money. Okay? Just like how you love your girl, how you love your boyfriend, girlfriend. Okay? If you don't love them, you think they love you. Cannot be, right? And I'm talking about love, except parents. They will love you undeservedly. Correct, everyone? Okay, but other things that you're chasing for money, you have to start to love money. Love doesn't mean you have been crazy of the money. So you must have an interest about this topic, financial management, but to not just read theory. To not just read theory. Practice is more important. Say it 1,000 times, why not do it one? There's always say, okay? But if you really wanted to make it a fast one, a successful story, there are many modules offered by MFPC, offered by AKPK, Bank Negara, EPF. There are many, many of these. They're just waiting for you to come to us. But again, as I say, okay, it's you who actually need the services. It's you actually hunting and asking for it. I cannot be spoon-feeding you, okay? Because I have two problems. You don't talk. You don't want to share your problem, first thing. Okay? Second, if something out of your interest, okay, after even I say they are compounding, you start closing your ears. That also make me difficult to explain to you what is other factors. Okay? Build the interest, join, sorry, again, marketing time, join AKPK Club, okay? Join their program because these Shanghai and others are really making effort. I'm their club advisor. We are almost meeting every month, right? He is struggling. Hey, where can I get all the participants? He look at me, I look at him. You're asking me in some way how to look for the student. You know, Shanghai, I have a solution for you now. A good news to share. After the effort for 3 years, we finally have 12 AKPK clubs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Desmond, for your sharing. I think basically, as I want to reiterate again, that we should face up to our problems, right? And we, as much as possible, use the resources available to gain financial awareness. But more importantly, right, after you've done that, right, make sure your heart and your hands and your feet are connected, right? The financial discipline is also important. Thank you so much, Dr. Desmond. This is my last question to all panelists. What would be your one key message for the audience today to take away when it comes to developing personal financial resilience?
Just a very quick one. Always knowing what is your financial status, that's a must. Okay, if you're not too sure what I'm saying, I just make it very fast. Do you know how much money now you have in your e-wallet, in your pocket, in your banking account? If the answer is no, better get to know. Okay, because that determines what is your resilience, whether you can even going through today or even next week. So financial status must get to know. Second, for those who already have enough saving, from MCO, pandemic towards the story. What's the story about? If your saving account, you don't have 6-month emergency fund, you are not prepared for another round of MCO. Okay, just emergency fund, saving, know your financial status. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Desmond. Dr. Paul?
I think this is very fundamental about behavioral change. And ultimately, I agree with Dr. Desmond. I mean, this is also experience. Sometimes the subject seems extremely boring. But the important thing is that the resources are out there. And the resources, so sometimes behavioral change becomes easier when you self-learn. Because then you'll look at areas that is of interest to you. If you've got an overextended credit card, okay, then you begin to research something, you know. So the information is out there, self-learn, and use it to change your own behavior.
I would build on what Dr. Desmond said just now. Once you know your financial situation, start budgeting. Because if you don't have a plan, you cannot achieve anything. You must have a plan. And once you have a plan, then you can start looking at what are your financial goals. Because everybody is going to have something they want. Car, house, a great vacation. Have those objectives, and then you can start actually working towards those goals. But if you just go by without knowing what your financial situation, without budgeting, without having financial goals, that's when you get into trouble. So I'll leave it at that.
Basically, I would echo all the other panelists by saying that you need to spend within your means, and then, of course, very important, develop the financial discipline and continuous learning. The resources are tremendous out there for you to upgrade and keep abreast with the changing financial trends and developments. Thank you.
Thank you to all the panelists. It has really been an interesting discussion, and I'm sure by now the audience will have many questions for the panelists. We will now open the floor for questions and answers.
Hi. Before I ask my questions, I would like to share a news with everybody. This news comes from Queensland, Australia. The title is say, Health Pizza Chain Launch New Afterlife Pay Schemes to eat pizza now and pay after you die. They have this, I think, they're talking about difficulty time. When people really don't have cash, whatever, then they have this kind of scheme to let people keep living. So this is just sharing a story. My question is, back to the EPF inject. Sorry.
Encik Noh Hisham.
No, Hisham. I got your name not right. About your ROI of EPF, currently above the FD, I think most of the investor or maybe the whoever contribute to it, they may look for more than that. As you know, the inflation rate is whatever government is mentioned, whatever actually fell it is considered is totally different. We can feel it's very different. And the return of current, just about few months back, they announced that about 5 point something, right? Maybe it's not so attractive. And by the way, is it any benchmark or minimum for EPF to the must have a target to achieve as a ROI for all the contributors?
The legally required return for EPF funds is 2.5%.
2.5.
2.5%. Okay.
Minimum.
Minimum. But I would take this kind of approach because it's not as if EPF is the only game in town. It's not as if all your savings will be at EPF, right? For most people, they'll have other avenues as well. You should always look at your saving strategy from a portfolio perspective, right? You don't dump all your money into Bitcoin, right? Okay. The way to do it is always have roughly about 50% of all your savings, whatever savings there are, into something ultra safe, because this is the money you cannot afford to lose. Then you put maybe about 30 or 40% into something that's a little higher, and then you have the funny money, the 10% where you've put into really high yielding investments, like crypto, like property speculation, like whatever, right? This is where you get your yield from. But 50% you keep ultra safe, because no matter what happens, it keeps you safe, right? You should always look at your entire asset side of your balance sheet. Again, we're talking about your financial situation, right? You're looking at the whole asset side of your balance sheet that way. Your house is an investment. It's not just a place to stay. Your EPF savings is an investment. Whatever you put into FD or savings or unit trusts or whatever instruments there are, you treat it as a portfolio, and your actual blended return is what you're looking for, right? EPF is the ultra safe portion, right? This is the one you cannot afford to lose, right? This, fine. And even though it's ultra safe, you're still getting 5%.
I would like to have put more money to EPF if you're able to make it at least 7.
For us to make 7, you remember we're a 1 trillion fund, right? It's not small. For us to take on 7%, means that we're actually fundamentally shifting the risk of the portfolio. It's no longer safe. It will no longer be safe. Right now, what we have been finding, and not just us, a lot of other pension funds around the world, is that the risk tolerance is rising past the point which we're comfortable with. Okay? So despite the fact that the returns have been coming off over the past decade or so, the risk that we are taking on is actually rising. Do you understand? And it's not just us. All the other pension funds around the world are seeing the same thing. There is a search for yield because over the past decade, we've had very low interest rates, right? Equity returns have been so-so. So what's been going on? A lot of people have been going into private equity. They're going into alternative investments because you can make 15% there, right? But you're also taking on a lot more risk. Not very high, but you have to be very careful about investments like that. So we've paid our dues. We hope we understand the market. The other thing is, whatever it is, diversification. All right? It's okay to do P2P lending. It's okay to do, crypto, but you better diversify. You don't put all your investment into one coin. You spread it over 50, right? You do P2P, fine. You do 10 to 50 investments, not one, right? Diversification is key. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions from the floor?
Good afternoon to the panel speakers. Thank you for your sharing. It was very informative. I speak from a perspective of a mid-30s person. I'm already working. I hear a lot of news about cost of inflation, about how the ringgit is dropping in terms of its value, and a lot of uncertainty and volatility in the market. I just want to ask for your opinion, what to expect in the coming years and what to look out for in terms of whether is property going to be more expensive to buy and we should just focus on renting, or what should we look out for in the coming years?
Okay, I think I take it as from financial planning point of view, will be easier. Okay, actually, when you have this kind of question to a planner, I rather saying that maybe you don't have a plan yet. Okay, you're not too sure about what to expect and what are the uncertain events and certain events. Okay, so as a planner, financial planner, we always go on what if, the assumptions. Okay, so if you are in your mid-30, I suppose you should be in the accumulation phase. That means income accumulation phase. Unless you tell me I'm jobless now, tell me what to do, then look for a job lah. Okay, if you are accumulation phase, we always eyes on how to reduce expenses, improve income for a scenario. So you have to really, like what Hisham just shared, what is your financial goal? What you want to achieve in the next 10 years? Okay, if let's say I want to buy a house, not good enough, I don't want to have an answer like that. I want to know what type of house, how much, where is it, what exactly what you want to do. Retirement, for retirement purpose, for investment purpose, for maybe for risk purpose, any purpose. You have to be very specific. Okay. Other than that, it's all calculation. It's just software will help you what you need to do. Of course, this is talking about how you can save, how you can invest. Okay. Can I ask you the next question? What happens if the plan not working? Do you have a plan? You always eyes on something happen. What happens if things not happen to the way that you want? Okay. Are you going to borrow more money? Are you going to get a fast track, get rich fast scheme? That is why I'm coming from. Okay. If you don't have a plan, you always find alternative route, but they may not be your options. You get what I mean? The plan must be certain and uncertain, and you have a scenario assumptions. Okay? I mean, for a financial planner, we call it risk management. How you manage it. Okay. So now I give you a scenario. If you are mid-30, you should look for investment, but like what Hisham said, portfolio, set it with play money, save money, secure money, put it in a different pot. and come up with a yearly return. The yearly return, just like EPF, you have to fix your time, okay? When I'm going to close my own personal account. Are you doing your accounting yearly? Yeah. Yeah. So when is your closing date? Oh, scratch my head. Got closing date one. Yeah, 31st December every year. Okay, that is the time I want to know the whole year performance. Am I making loss, and do I need to have a plan change for next year? Okay, this is fall under our financial planning modules. The last step, review and monitoring. Okay, that is step by step. Does it sound very difficult, sophisticated? No. There is a course out there, and there is offered by many modules and things like that. Just today you ask these questions, I think it's very good for you. It's the time for you to look for answer. Don't take an easy answer for any one of us, to be honest. Okay, because I'm not mid-30. Anyone mid-30 here? No, okay. So my plan may not suitable for you. Okay, so start looking for an answer, start looking for the avenue, and start looking for a plan and options. Okay, if not, I have Madam Chang here, MFPC. Look for her. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Would you like to take a question? Anyone of you like to add? All right. Can we have perhaps one last question from the audience?
Good afternoon to the panelists. My name is Ryan, and I actually have one question for Encik Noor Hisham from EPF. Recently there's a Sharia saving rate. The dividend rate is split into two, the conventional rate and the Sharia rate. Maybe you can give us more insight on why there's a difference in the return on investment between these two types of rates.
Thanks for the question. I actually got the same question this morning. Sorry, Dr. Desmond was actually attending a briefing I was giving on our first quarter results, and I think the same question came up. Why there's a difference between Sharia and conventional? Essentially because the rate of return on Sharia assets was lower. I mean, that's the simple answer. If you want to look at something a bit more specific, a lot of the Sharia assets that are available to us are local, right? Local market has underperformed relative to international markets. That's another reason. The third reason is that typically, in theory, what should happen is that because Sharia assets tend to be a bit more less volatile, in theory, when you have a downturn, conventional return should actually drop below Sharia. We found that that didn't happen this time, largely due to regulatory reasons. So if I won't name names, but twice the speed at half the price. If you know what I'm referring to, it's broadband and telecom. So the utilities are a big portion of Sharia assets, and they have underperformed over the last 3 years, largely because there has been a lot of pressure to reduce prices while increasing investment into infrastructure, right? So the big boys all, generally telecom has underperformed. Banks have correspondingly outperformed. So that's why conventional returns has actually been quite decent, right? And obviously Sharia is not into banks. Yeah. The other thing is a lot more technical. One of the reasons why there is a spread between Sharia and conventional is that currently the way we operate Sharia and conventional is by ratios. So actually some of the Sharia assets are actually under the conventional side, while there is a portion that's strictly for Sharia. But it's by ratio, so it's the same asset for both. What we found is that essentially the whole asset allocation is based on conventional. So it's not optimal to increase the return on Sharia assets. So starting next year, we have a project undergoing right now to actually split the entire portfolio into two, so that Sharia will have its own portfolio and will have its own asset allocation. And that will allow us to optimize the asset allocation to boost the return on Sharia assets. So hopefully within the next 2 years or so, you'll see the spread actually shrinking quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Looks like we have time for one more last question, right? Is there anyone who would like to
Another question to Cik Nur Hisham as well. Okay.
Popular man.
I'm a Sharia contributor. Happy with the rate. No worries. Okay. But my question is on two parts. One is basically on Ailindong. I think it's a very great initiative that EPF have came up with. Although right now Ailindong is been seen as sweetener to what we call the typical standalone life saving. But I thought that if I'm a young professional that just enter the work market and I was make note of this Ailindong, I won't look at other private platform, and I'll just go straight to Ailindong. So question is there any plan, for example, to ramp up this offering under Ailindong to make it as comparatively equivalent to what is available in the market out there? But also I noticed that Ailindong is not widely promoted. I just spoke to my colleague just now and just opened the website and then subscribe. All right. The other one is like, I take my money from EPF to invest in a trust. And recently when I opened my report on investment, I was like, why everything in red, right? And whenever we take money from EPF and basically through the interest agent, it's not free. We have to pay 3%, So is there anything or mechanism that will be regulated by EPF in order to protect the contributors that take out the money to put money in investment, right? Maybe a certain threshold on that, right? That will help us. And also to reprimand these people on ethic point of view that you take our money, you need to manage it well. That's my two questions. Thanks.
Okay, just to address your first question first, yes, Ailindong is a bit undermarketed. That's largely because EPF is not used to marketing. So we have been actually building up our marketing capabilities over the last couple of years. At the moment, there is a cross-division task force that's looking at coordination there. I've gotten approval from my boss to double the marketing budget, right? So previously, if we were spending 1 million a year, it's too much. 1 million a year can buy you 3 spots on TV. Not a whole lot, okay? So we're looking at spending quite substantially more, I think, over the next few years. You'll be hearing a lot more from us, I think. So Ailindong, I think phase 2 will involve multi-year policies, I think. We don't intend it to replace what's available on the market. What we actually, the whole goal behind this is to provide a basic product. It was aimed at the B40, really. Those who are lower income, who don't actually have any insurance at all. What we find is largely T20 taking it up, unfortunately. But regardless, it's supposed to be a basic product to help protect our members. I mean, that's part of what EPF is supposed to do as a social protection organization. So it will continue to be fairly basic. It will continue to be very competitive. What we don't want to do is go out and compete with what's out there, because what's out there tends to be very complex. The pricing is very opaque, right? You want a standardized product that all the insurance givers are giving that is comparable so people can see what the pricing is, right? Because if you go out there and you add riders and stuff like that, you have no idea how they're pricing it anymore. Okay. Second thing, on the unit trust, this is a choice for the members. We neither promote it nor say it's a bad thing. Yeah? You have to go in with your eyes wide open. Stocks go up, they go down. There will be times when the unit trust will underperform. There will be times when the unit trust will outperform EPF. Right? Again, it's a choice. I would say that if you can, if you want to take this option, go through iInvest. Don't go through an agent. You can actually do it yourself through the app, right? The actual cost of that investment is zero, almost zero. It's between 0 to 0.25%, not the 3% that the agents charge. Okay? So the app is, again, another choice that we provide to our members so that they can manage their own money. The other thing that we wanted to do with iInvest through the app was to tell you exactly what the performance is, right? And that information gives you the ability to actually know, okay, these guys are performing, these guys are not performing. Because previously, all you get is the annual report, right? This is real time. This is actually the previous day's number, right? So with that information, you can have a good idea of how your portfolio is actually performing. And I think that information is very useful for our members to make informed decisions.
Always make informed decisions and go invest with your eyes open, all right? So that's the key message. Time really flies, and we have now come to the end of the forum. I would once again like to thank our distinguished panel of speakers for taking their precious time and the willingness to share their expert insights with all of us. I would now like to hand back the sessions to our MCs, Hani and Jiang Hao.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joyce and our esteemed panelists for your time and invaluable contribution to this session. You may return to your seats, please. Thank you. We are sure all of us gained great insights and meaningful takeaways from the discussion. Through the diverse perspectives shared, we now be better informed on how to effectively manage our finances and achieve our financial goals. Again, we would like to extend our sincerest appreciation to each of our panelists for sharing their expert views. Thank you also to the audience for your active engagement and thought-provoking questions. Our sincere apologies for not being able to address all of the questions due to the time constraints we faced, but your contributions have made this event truly rewarding. Thank you very much.